Hello everyone! So here's a watch that had me pause for a second when I first saw it. I'm talking about the SBGJ237 from the Grand Seiko Sport Collection. When I first got this watch, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. I had to digest what is being proposed here by Grand Seiko before I could give you my review of this watch. Now, before we go there, let's go over the specs in the next 60 seconds. The watch has a 44.2mm diameter and is 14.4mm thick with a lug width of 21mm. Lug-to-lug measures in at approximately 50.8mm. The overall feel of this watch screams quality. It is robust, feels super solid, and yes, it is a bit bigger boned than most GMTs. More on that in a moment. Now, as this is Seiko Diver's watch, switching off the lights one is instantly reminded of the immortal words of Jerry Lee Lewis. Great balls of fire. My oh my, what else is there to say? It features a dark blue dial which is framed nicely by that blue GMT bezel. The hands are finished to Grand Seiko's typical high standards, absolutely gorgeous. Even the date window is finished to perfection. Powered by the caliber 9S86, a high beat movement with a power reserve of approximately 55 hours. Accurate to +5 to -3 seconds a day. A true GMT movement, you can set the hour hand independently without having to touch the minute hand. This version comes on a steel bracelet and a 3-fold clasp with push button release and micro adjustment. First of all, Grand Seiko already offers some of my absolute favorite GMT watches on the market. They have GMTs in all sorts of executions, from classic looks all the way to the extravagant or sporty looking ones. Now, as such, this particular model is actually a fantastic addition to an already very strong family of GMT watches by Grand Seiko. In fact, I can't really think of any other watch brand with such a strong presence in the GMT segment. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any other brand that stands this tall in the GMT world. Some of my favorite GMT watches by Grand Seiko, which are dramatically different from this one here, are, for example, the SBGM221, a gorgeous retro-styled GMT, an absolute beauty and perhaps one of my favorite GMT watches of any brand currently available. There is of course also the SBGJ201, which comes in the wonderful 44GS case design, which puts a smile on the face of most Seiko enthusiasts. And then you have, for example, as well, that sporty SBGE253, all GMT watches, each one with a very different look. Now in 2020, Grand Seiko adds this big guy right here to the lineup, and it absolutely has its place in there, without any doubt. Now this looks dramatically different from anything they currently offer within the GMT family. Now this is perhaps one of the most visually pleasing watches I have seen in a while. The dial looks black most of the time here, but it is in fact a very deep blue. It pairs nicely with that white and blue GMT bezel. The blue on the bezel also changes color quite a bit, moving from solid black to a bright blue depending on how the light hits it. The sapphire bezel further adds to the visual interest and really, truly lifts the watch up. For the record, I absolutely love this bezel design. It is something truly special and a very welcome change from the ceramic bezel trend. The hands and dial, as mentioned, are just on their very own level, a level created and occupied solely by Grand Seiko. Nobody else within this segment comes anywhere close to Grand Seiko regarding finishing. Not only does everything look particularly well finished, it is also all very legible at a glance, which is key for a watch that sits in the sport collection, of course. The case as well, again, typical Grand Seiko, beautifully hand finished. Notice also the different finishes. You can see some satin finishing and then also that unique Zaratsu polished finish on some sides. Now, due to the mix of finishes and that robust case design, it certainly feels at home in the Seiko's sport collection. I would not categorize this as a classic GMT. It truly is a sport watch here. The bracelet then, I have to say, it works well with this watch, and to me this is also a watch that would look best here on its bracelet rather than on a strap, for example, but that's a matter of personal taste. The clasp feels very well built and is easy to operate. So it has the two triggers which have to be pressed in order to open the clasp, so that actually prevents accidental openings when bumping into something. Very handy on a sport watch. The clasp has a satin finish, which again works very well with the overall theme of this watch. Now, on the wrist. There is no hiding the fact that this is a 44.2mm watch, especially on my smaller wrist. It is a large watch. It doesn't wear small, but it is very well proportioned. So I'd say anyone with a wrist measurement above, say, 17 centimeters or so should definitely not be afraid to try this on, because I believe it would look absolutely fantastic on those wrists. Any wrists smaller than that, such as my own, I would encourage you to try this on in the store first before buying. Now, on my wrist it feels great and has that distinct feeling of a high quality tool watch, as intended by Grand Seiko without any doubt. You can also see that the watch looks quite a bit different under various lighting conditions, as it picks up the light in such a unique fashion. The dial, the bezel, it all makes for a very unique wrist experience. I really like the styling of this watch, and I think Grand Seiko did a splendid job here. Of course, personally, I can't help but wish it were a few millimeters smaller, or well, that my wrist were a little bit bigger. Style-wise, I think they nailed it here, and this is a fantastic GMT watch for anyone looking for something a bit different. The GMT landscape is often reduced to a few models in many people's search for a luxury GMT watch. Anyone looking for a well-made, highly robust GMT featuring exquisite finishing should certainly have a closer look at Grand Seiko and SBGJ237 in particular.